लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, हिम्मत करने वालों की हार नहीं होती। नन्ही चींटी जब दाना लेकर चलती है, चढ़ती दीवारों पर 100 बार फिसलती है। मन का विश्वास रगों में साहस भरता है, चढ़कर गिरना गिरकर चढ़ना अखरता है। आखिर उसकी मेहनत बेकार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों की हार नहीं होती। This very thought, you saw the story, you saw the complete journey, and this very thought gave birth to Yoga Shame, Delhi's NCR's only accredited Iyengar Yoga Center. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now request Nivedita Joshi ji to kindly address you all. जोरदार तालियों से आपका स्वागत करें. She is a great practitioner now. और आपके सानिध्य में बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स पढ़ रहे हैं.
गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. देवियों और सज्जनों, माननीय अतिथिगण, मैं आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देती हूँ कि आपने अपने व्यस्त समय से इस कार्यक्रम के लिए थोड़ा सा समय निकाल के यहाँ आने का कष्ट किया. इस लेक्चर प्रेजेंटेशन को शुरू करने से पहले मैं 3 महान आत्माओं को नमन करना चाहूँगी और धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगी, बल्कि कहें 4. एक नानाजी देशमुख, जिन्होंने मुझे गुरुजी से मिलवाया और ये विश्वास दिलाया कि योग ही है जो मेरी ज़िंदगी में फिर से जान डालेगा. और मेरे माता पिता, जिनके सहयोग और समर्थन के बिना ये संभव नहीं था. और गुरुजी, जो शरीर के में तो नहीं है यहाँ, लेकिन उनकी एनर्जी हर जगह मुझे महसूस होती है, क्योंकि उन्होंने जो मुझ पर मेहनत की उसकी एक मिसाल है मेरी ज़िंदगी. और शायद मैं इसीलिए आपके सामने आज खड़ी हो सक रही हूँ, चल सक रही हूँ, बोल सक रही हूँ, मुस्कुरा सकती हूँ, क्योंकि गुरुजी ने अपने अथक प्रयास से योग के ज़रिए मुझे वापसी की ज़िंदगी का हाथ थमाया. आज मेरे लिए ये बहुत अहम दिन है, क्योंकि एक समय था जब मेरा दिन का 8 घंटा सिर्फ डॉक्टर बेला सेठी के क्लिनिक में जाता था. और वो इसलिए क्योंकि मैं पढ़ाई भी कर रही थी, तो मुझे बिना थेरेपी के मेरे लिम्स मूव नहीं करते थे. और ऐसे ही एक दिन मेरे बेड के ठीक सामने के बिस्तर पे, मुझे अभी भी याद है, एक लेडी, एक पेशेंट थी जो लॉयर थी. वो आई, उनको भी स्लिप डिस्क का मेजर अटैक हुआ था, और वो जो एक मैसिव अटैक होता है वो उससे गुजर के आ रही थी. उन्होंने बेड पे लेट के रोना शुरू किया, और उनके रोने में इतना दर्द था कि मैं अपना दर्द भूल गई, जबकि मैं भी उसी इलाज के लिए और उसी दर्द में आई थी. और तब मैंने ऊपर ऐसे छत की ओर देखा डॉक्टर सेठी की क्लिनिक में, और मैंने भगवान से कहा कि अगर आपने मुझे रास्ता दिखाया तो ये मेरा वायदा है कि मैं ये तमाम लोगों तक रास्ता पहुंचाऊंगी, ये रोशनी लेके जाऊंगी. मुझे नहीं पता था तब कि ये आवाज़ मेरी, ये दुआ मेरी सुन ली भगवान ने और मुझे गुरुजी से मिला दिया. और फिर कब गुरुजी ने, जैसे कि कल मैं वृंदा जी को बता रही थी कि एक जापानीज़ मास्टर की एक स्टोरी है कि उसने अपने स्टूडेंट को बिना विषय पढ़ाए कुछ और तरीके से सब वही काम करा के ताइक्वांडो मास्टर बना दिया था. ऐसे ही कुछ मेरे साथ हुआ. कब कैसे गुरुजी ने एक पेशेंट को न केवल खड़ा किया, आत्मविश्वास वापस दिलाया, बल्कि एक वर्ल्ड क्लास टीचर बना के खड़ा कर दिया. तो ये भी उनकी एक कृपा थी, और या ये कहें कि ये विषय और गुरु दोनों की कृपा थी. इस तरीके से योगक्षेम की शुरुआत हुई, जो आयंगर योगा सेंटर है दिल्ली का एक इकलौता. और इसके लिए सिर्फ और सिर्फ, जैसे मैंने कहा आपसे, कि मैं 4 लोगों को नमन करती हूँ. नानाजी देशमुख, मेरे माता पिता और मेरे गुरु. आज हम बात करने आए हैं कि योगा फॉर न्यू मिलीनियम की क्या क्या हम कार्य कर सकते हैं नई सहस्राब्दी के लिए योगा के जरिए। तो पहले तो ये नेक्स्ट समझना चाहिए या समझना पड़ेगा कि योग की परिभाषा क्या है। हम जो योगाभ्यासी हैं उसके लिए डॉक्टर BK आयंगर जो हैं वो उनकी वही स्थिति है जैसे शांति के पथ पर महात्मा गांधी की, या ये कहें कि पतंजलि का इनकारनेशन। गुरु जी हमेशा कहा करते थे, योगा इज अ लाइट विच वंस lit will never dim. The better you practice, the brighter the flame. And I am the living example standing in front of you. Next. Well, if we have to describe yoga, though it's a very deep science, it's a very deep art and philosophy, but we have to describe yoga in a very short period of time. All I can say is that yoga is the most beautiful gift from India to humankind. Word yoga has been derived from Sanskrit dhatu called yuj. If you can see, no, I'm familiar, ठीक है, if you can see. Let it be. It is a science, art and philosophy. It's the perfect embodiment, if I can say so, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. However, yoga is neither faith nor superstition. ये बहुत बड़ा मिथ है, स्पेशली वेस्टर्न कंट्रीज में, कि ये कोई एक ऐसी विधा है। बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा अभी भी ये समझता है कि ये कोई सुपरस्टिशन है। ऐसा नहीं है। It's a subject which is with well-defined philosophy, grammar and goal, epitomizes India's spirituality. So, ये एक छोटा सा शब्द ज़रूर है, लेकिन इसमें हमारी पूरी धरोहर समाई हुई है। Next. बात जब योग की आती है तो ये समझना बहुत ज़रूरी हो जाता है कि योग कई प्रकार के हम नाम सुनते हैं, वो क्या हैं और इनमें भेद क्या है। योग तो अष्टांग योग है जिसकी 8 सीढ़ियां हैं, या ये कहें कि योगा हैज 8 लिम्स, जो मिलके बनता है यम, नियम, आसन, प्राणायाम, प्रत्याहार, धारण, ध्यान, समाधि। मगर अलग अलग स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स ने उनको अलग अलग तरीके से इस्तेमाल किया है और इसी आधार पे अलग अलग स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स की उत्पत्ति हुई है। जैसे म्यूजिक में सारे गामा एक ही तरह के होते हैं लेकिन अलग अलग घराने होते हैं, ऐसे ही योग में बहुत सारे घराने हैं और उनमें से एक स्कूल ऑफ थॉट आयंगर स्कूल ऑफ थॉट है। तो ये बात समझने वाली है कि आखिर ऐसा क्या है कि आयंगर स्कूल ऑफ थॉट औरों से अलग होता है और किन किन बातों पे वो, किन किन विषयों पे वो अलग होता है। एक अद्भुत चीज़ जो मैंने गुरुजी के साथ काम करते समय देखी और सीखी वो ये कि मैं एक माइक्रोबायोलॉजिस्ट हूँ। जब मैं उनके पास पहुँची तो ऐसा मुझे एहसास था कि मैंने बहुत पढ़ाई की है और गोल्ड मेडल मिला है, टॉप किया है, तो शरीर के बारे में बहुत अच्छा ज्ञान है। लेकिन उनसे मिलने के बाद ये एहसास हुआ कि ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं है। एक योगी सबसे बड़ा वैज्ञानिक है, सबसे बड़ा दार्शनिक है और सबसे बड़ा कलाकार है। गुरुजी तो कभी स्कूल भी नहीं गए थे, लेकिन उनका जो अद्भुत अभ्यास था, जो उनकी पकड़ थी, वो उनको बहुत अनूठा गुरु बनाती थी। मैं जब उनसे मिली, मैंने हर अपने कार्यक्रम में कहा है, तो उन्होंने मेरी स्किन के एक इंच के हिस्से को जो देख पा रहे थे उतने से ही मेरा डायग्नोसिस कर दिया था कि तुम्हें ये है, ये तकलीफ है, ये वाली डिस्क बाहर है, इस तरफ बाहर है, राइट साइड बाहर है कि लेफ्ट साइड। एवरीथिंग वाज प्रिसाइज टू द टी विदाउट लुकिंग एट माई MRIs। सो जब मैंने उनके साथ काम करना शुरू किया तो पहल तो मेरा भी एहसास ये था कि बड़ा अच्छा लगा, दर्द गया, हिम्मत आई, हौसला बढ़ा, लेकिन ये नहीं समझ में आता था कि क्या होता है कि मुझे इतना आराम मिलता है। तो मेरा भी उतना ही एहसास था जितना एक आम आदमी का होता है कि योगा बड़ी अच्छी एक्सरसाइज है। तब मेरा भी यही विचार था, लेकिन हकीकत ये नहीं है और ना ये थी। तो वो धीरे धीरे जब मैंने पढ़ना शुरू किया और ये समझना शुरू किया कि आखिर ऐसा गुरुजी क्या करते हैं और उनके करने से क्या हमारे मन और शरीर में होता है कि जो आसनों को साधारण एक्सरसाइज से बहुत आगे ले जाता है। इसी श्रृंखला में मैं ये बताना चाहूँगी कि कैसे आयंगर योगा और योग से डिफरेंट है और क्या गुरुजी का इस फील्ड में कंट्रीब्यूशन रहा है और उसके ज़रिए अब हम क्या काम कर रहे हैं। गुरुजी का जो सबसे बड़ा कंट्रीब्यूशन है इस सिस्टम में वो है सीक्वेंसिंग ऑफ द आसना, कि किस आसन को किसके बाद किया जाए। जैसे कि आप क्या खाएं और उसके बाद क्या खाएं, अगर उल्टा खा लिया तो उल्टी हो जाएगी। ऐसे ही कितने मिनट किया जाए, हर एक आसन का एक जेस्टेशन पीरियड है। देयर इज अ टाइम पीरियड फॉर विच यू हैव टू होल्ड द पोज सो दैट द आसना स्प्राउट्स इन योर बॉडी एंड माइंड। नाउ दैट इज अ वेरी चैलेंजिंग एस्पेक्ट फॉर अ पर्सन who is physically challenged. When I went to Guruji, I was unable to lift one single paper. So for me to hold a pose for certain period of time, maybe it is 2 minutes, was just beyond my imagination. Then the next thing which I realized with the passage of time is his creation of different props. When he was teaching Yehudi Menuhin, the great violinist, he used to put his knee below his tailbone to create a posture or asana called Setubandh Sarvangasana. Now for that he has to hold it for minutes together, and many other students he was helping the same way, and he was starting feeling pain in his knee, and he started realizing that he has to create certain things so that the patients or the people who are weak can use their minimum energy and get the maximum benefit. And in this, can you see my slides? In this process, he developed certain things, and he used certain things which are user-friendly way available in any home, whether it is stool, chair, a small brick, a belt or a rope, and he started using that, and they became his props, for which he is known for his genius. Now you can see that this was the time when I was in the medical class and Guruji used to teach me. Now for me as a patient to start with, as a layman patient, not a scientist, was the fear which doctors have put in my mind that forward movement for a backache patient is just no. So I had lost that mobility to bend down, and trust me, my sister is not here, she would have endorsed this. I used to use my toes to switch on and switch off the buttons because I couldn't move down. One is the pain and the second is the fear. And he, just the contrary way, started doing this with me. Now just a small explanation. When you see me doing this Uttanasana on the stool, all you see is that my body is moving forward. And that's what all my understanding was to start with, and the feeling was great. But the science behind it was much more deeper than what you can see. When you bend a person on this particular adjustment, I am not going into the details of the adjustment, actually when you measure, the spine gets 2 inches more long than the ordinary condition. So you were moving the spine forward and creating the space on those areas which were jammed. And it was amazing, soothing feeling. And just a little more detail, as a scientist, I can't stop myself. When you see, what you see from your, nascent eyes is that my spine is moving forward, my body is moving forward, my trunk is moving forward. Basically, I'm moving forward, but that's not the truth. In Iyengar system, the instructions are intricate, and that takes you to the higher level of understanding or higher level of consciousness. Now, if you see, my spine definitely is moving forward. But there are techniques which he used to teach me that how my side trunk can go backward. So if your spine moves forward and your side trunk goes backward, it's a natural traction for your spine, and your vertebrae gets traction which is coming from your own body weight, which is the most optimum and natural. And that was one of the reasons I used to get a lot of relief. This is one friction of the explanation which I am giving you for this particular pose. I mean, I can go on months together explaining this particular pose. Now the point is, as I was reading his books before I was coming for this lecture, we are talking about the modern science and the modern scientist and the new techniques. But at the dawn of human civilization, yogis had already done that. There were people like Guruji who were practicing, re-establishing the facts because it's a science, doing the experiments in their own body and mind, coming out with some philosophy and the basis, and then redefining and re-refining it. So that is the depth of this heritage, what we call yoga. Now, seeing Guruji's work on this particular aspect, can we see the next? So I chose these two. You had seen me doing the same in my video. One was the extreme forward movement, which was no for me, and one was the extreme backward movement, which was again no for me. And trust me, both these movements gave my life back. So what I realized eventually when I was studying with him, and I continuously went on doing that, and the reason was that I realized that the medical science have limitations where they do not go beyond certain movements. I have no clue why it is so, but in yogic science there is no limitation. It goes beyond boundaries, and Mr. Iyengar's genius was that he not only went himself, but he brought yoga स्व से सर्व के लिए. इसी बात को आगे बढ़ाते हुए जब हमने योग के शब्द की उत्पत्ति की बात की, तो इसी दौरान ये बताना बहुत ज़रूरी है कि जब हम गुरुजी को कहते हैं कि ये पतंजलि के इनकारनेशन हैं या उनका एक स्वरूप है इस युग में, तो हमें ये भी जानना चाहिए कि पतंजलि महामुनि कौन थे. पतंजलि महामुनि हजारों साल पहले ऐसे ऋषि हुए जिन्होंने ये पहले से ही जान लिया था, ये एंटिसिपेटेड कि आने वाले कलयुग में लोगों की जिंदगियों में बहुत तकलीफें आएंगी. आप ध्यान से सोचिए, हर घर में कोई ना कोई बीमार है, किसी ना किसी चीज से परेशान है, और ये हमारे ऋषि मुनियों ने हजारों साल पहले एंटिसिपेट कर लिया था. और उससे लोगों को बचाने के लिए, उस बीमारियों को दूर रखने के लिए, या अगर हो जाएं तो उनको कैसे पार किया जाए, उन्होंने अद्भुत 196 सूत्र लिखे, which are known as Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Now, these 196 aphorisms attracted me to the T when I was practicing, because as a scientist, if we specialize on something, then we have right nostril and there are many books on that, left nostril, many book on that, then union, many book on that, and still we don't know कि कितना बड़ा पार्ट जो हम नोन समझ रहे हैं उससे कितना बड़ा हिस्सा अननोन बचा हुआ है. Whereas Sage Patanjali in 196 aphorism explains everything, the way of life. अगर आप उस परिप्रेक्ष्य में जाएं और देखें तो आप ये पाएंगे कि पतंजलि के योग सूत्र में कहीं भी आसन कैसे किया जाए इसके विषय में नहीं लिखा गया है. इसके बारे में अगर जानना हो और अगर कोई सीरियस स्टूडेंट उसको पढ़ना चाहे तो ये हमें फिर इन शब्दों को खोजना पड़ता है, और वो वेद में उनका उसकी देखने को मिलता है कि ये वेदों में कहाँ ये शब्द आए हैं, उपनिषदों में ये शब्द कहाँ आए हैं. तो अगर देखा जाए तो ऋग्वेद में योग के शब्द की उत्पत्ति दिखती है, और उसके बाद तैत्तिरीय उपनिषद में इसकी शुरुआत नजर आती है. मगर अगर आप हिंदुस्तान के बारे में बात करें तो ये बिल्कुल साफ नजर आता है कि इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन के समय में या हड़प्पा मोहनजोदाड़ो के समय में जो एक्सकवेशन मिले हैं उसमें जो मूर्तियां मिलती हैं उसमें ध्यान की अवस्था है, उसमें आसनों की अवस्था है. तो हिंदू सभ्यता ने इसको बहुत प्राचीन समय से ही काम पे इसको इस्तेमाल करना शुरू कर दिया था. लेकिन जो बात बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग मुझे लगी कि जब हम इसे साइंस कहते हैं, और गुरुजी हमेशा कहते थे कि मेरा शरीर मेरी प्रयोगशाला है, तो ये मानी हुई बात है कि जो आज का योग का प्रारूप है वो आज से हजारों साल पहले नहीं रहा होगा. ये एक बहुत बड़ी यात्रा है जो ये विषय आगे तक लेके आया है. इसमें कई एक्सपेरिमेंट्स हुए होंगे, कई योगियों ने अभ्यास किया होगा, फिर उनसे कुछ रिजल्ट निकला होगा उनकी प्रयोगशाला में, और फिर उन्होंने उसको रिफाइन किया होगा. तो आज जो हम स्वरूप देख रहे हैं उसमें से जो हम आयंगर जी की विधा देख रहे हैं वो अद्भुत है, क्योंकि उन्होंने न तो केवल इसको यूजर फ्रेंडली बनाया मगर इसकी साइंटिफिक जो रूपरेखा थी, जो एस्पेक्ट था, ही डिडंट अलाउ इट टू डाइल्यूट इट. दैट्स व्हाई यू गेट द very precise alignment and you get the absolute 100% result. In fact, Guruji's favorite sentence used to be, alignment brings enlightenment in the body. And that is so true when I started practicing with him seriously and started reading and understanding what is he doing, what is happening in my body, what is making me to go back and back again to the practice class and practice 6 hours, 7 hours, 9 hours a day. So this was one of the aspects which I understood to start with. Now when you see this, in our system, in yogic system, it is said that if your spine is healthy, then your body will be healthy, your mind will be healthy. जैसे एक सितार में एक तमूरा होता है और कई तार होते हैं, ऐसे ही अगर ये तमूरा है सितार का और आपके तार स्पाइन से निकल रहे हैं, जितनी आपकी नर्व्स हैं, if you do not fine tune them and you have injuries, for sure the music will be besur. It will not be harmonious. So it is very, very important to work on your spine, through the spine, by the spine, to bring the health in your body and mind. Now when you move your spine in certain directions, and very interestingly, especially those who are doctors here will understand that how we explain this particular movements, that spine has the capacity to move forward, backward, sideways, every side. God has given this to us. That means the energy movement is based on these movements. If you restrict that, you are restricting slowly very major movements in your body, and the result is in the mind. So again, in this particular very strong posture, I could stay for 5 minutes, which was the gestation period for this particular pose, and the reason was his improvisation of the posture and his improvisations of the props. So this is what makes the Iyengar Yoga very special, the sequencing of the asanas, that which asana should be followed by another asana, and the props which he used to make everyone feel that you can do it, and the results were sure shot. The bigger question to me was that why not get all right and move out? Tata, thank you. And trust me, as I was telling Vrindaji, that Guruji, when was teaching me, he must have seen something, I don't know what, and he has started me training for the deeper understanding, and maybe there was in his mind that I should become a teacher. But for me, for years together in the beginning, the idea was get all right and go back to your scientific world, which was my passion. But the thing which I started realizing very slowly but very deeply, that there is something beyond to that. This is what we are talking about, his props, his manifestation of his postures, and then the very good results of the good health. But there is something bigger to that, deeper to that. And what is that? And when I was reading Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there is one sutra which says, Heyam Dukkham Anagatam. जिसमें पतंजलि ये कहते हैं कि ये एक ऐसा अद्भुत स्पिरिचुअल साइंस है कि जिसमें आप अगर अभ्यास करते रहते हैं तो ना केवल आप रोगों से दूर रहते हैं, बल्कि हो सकता है आप हमेशा रोग मुक्त रहें, और अगर कार्मिक कोई रोग आप में लग भी जाए तो आप उसको सेल थ्रू बड़ा अच्छा करते हैं. ऐसा ये अद्भुत विषय है. इससे मुझे अंदाजा हुआ कि ये जो गुरुजी का काम है ये बेस्ड है ऑन पतंजलि योग सूत्र. फॉर श्योर इन सूत्रास यू डोंट सी एनीवेयर any posture described or prescribed, but how you should reach to that level, Guruji gave us a very beautiful golden pathway to follow. And one of the biggest achievement which I say of Guruji's genius was these 3 things, and also making a student to feel, if you practice religiously, whether you are scientist or not, the hormones and the enzymes will come on one particular level which is harmonious. But for that you have to practice regularly. Now how to practice was his genius. He made me to practice all these things when I had lost my complete hope. So this is another aspect of Iyengar Yoga which makes Iyengar Yoga so different from the rest of the yoga. Next. Now when I started learning yoga, I never thought that I will be running a beautiful center with Guruji's grace. We started this center 6 years ago, and we have all kinds of classes. But for me the biggest revelation was something else. When Guruji was teaching youngsters, one day he says to me, "Hey Nivedita, always remember, kids should not be taught meditation." And for me, oh, why Guruji? And he says, have you ever noticed that kids, when they come, they shout, they scream, you scold them, and within 5 minutes they forget and they go away. Their state of mind is at peace, not yours. So it is so strange that nowadays I have seen that, this is a very misconception that small kids, 6, 7, 8-year-old, in the schools have been taught meditation and pranayama. It's absolutely not recommended. First of all, meditation is a state of mind, it cannot be taught, and pranayama for such small kids is not required at all. For me, my experience teaching them in my center was fabulous, and they have the best of the energies which they can use any time to create something wonderful. So we don't have to do that. This is another aspect which I studied with him, and I realized that, we don't require that. But when I was teaching and I was looking at his work, the another thing as a scientist for me was very interesting, that how he is, like Patanjali, anticipating certain things which are going to happen in certain age, in certain time period. I remember when he became 80-year-old, I was in that 80th year in his center once, and I went from Delhi, and Guruji is practicing in his particular corner where I used to sit next to him to practice with him. And I sat down and quietly saw next that what is he doing? He is such a fit person, and then he does all the postures in the absolute, no, this is kids next. Absolute, no problem in doing any posture. And what is he doing? He was doing Trikonasana. And the red t-shirt, one of my students, Ekta, is doing Trikonasana, and between the two Tressler, again it is something which Guruji invented while he was teaching a student in London who was a polo player. So there were horse and there were some structure for the horses, and Guruji gave this name horse, and he created this particular structure while he was helping him, and then it became a very popular structure. It is known as horse or Tressler. And Guruji himself has sandwiched between these two horses, and he is practicing Trikonasana, which is the basic standing pose. So I sat there and I looked at him, and he said to me, "Hey, kya dekh rahi hai?" I said, "Sir, I'm just watching. Why do you have to do this?" "Why not? I'm 80 and I know I'm going to live until 90 years. How will I practice at 90? So the beauty of his work was that he was not only practicing for himself but for everyone to see how it can be improvised for others. When you practice standing poses at certain age, you have a very good chance to get wobbly. And this is a pose which gives a huge amount to the strength of the legs and back. So he sandwiched himself between the two Tressler. Trust me, I have done this, so I can tell you. When you do the same posture independently with complete health, and when you do the same posture between these two Tressler, the game is totally different. The way your body opens and the way the energy flows, it changes the state of mind completely. You get the pensive, passive state of mind immediately in this pose without gasping for the breath. And the luck would happen. I had seen Guruji in 90 also practicing with this, without this. But he continued to see the experience, what it is. So as he said, the body is my basic laboratory. He kept on doing that. So you can see how these things are required for coming millennium, the new millennium. The reason being, nowadays when I travel abroad, I see the same things are happening in India. The old age is now becoming a curse. If you can keep your health absolutely filled till the time you live, why not? Unfortunately, India, we don't have too many good old age homes. So why not practice at any stage with any kind of health issues and get a good health and live your life happily? That was Guruji's idea. After Trikonasana, I'll show you next that the same posture, this is done by one of my teachers, Niru. Thank you, Niru. This is the same posture. You can do it in lying down position. Guruji saw certain aged or senior citizen people who couldn't get up from the bed. They were Guruji's old friends, and they requested Guruji that Mr. Iyengar, we would love to come back to the same class and do the pose, but we can't. We are now restricted to the bed. So Guruji taught them lying down the similar pose, Trikonasana. Now I am not getting into the detail, but this is the evolution of the science which started from the time of Patanjali, beyond that Vedic time, and how it has been evolved. The next, Now I have different kinds of students of different age group. Is Mr. Sodi. He comes under senior citizen category, and when you are not well or you are feeling wobbly, you can do the same pose without any problem. And fortunately, Mr. Sodi is fitter than any younger person. God bless you, Mr. Sodi. Next. Now this is very interesting slide for me. One day Guruji has called me to Belur, where his hometown, and there was a big yoga festival, and there was one program which in Belur some students have collected together and they were presenting. All of a sudden one group came. They were all visually impaired, and the age group was from 4 year till 12 year. They were belonging to the families who didn't even have money to buy clothes and food. But as a tradition of that particular area, Belur, where Guruji belongs to, they were practicing. And trust me, the kind of practice they showed us and the kind of balancing postures they showed us, I couldn't stop my tears. For me, this was a miracle of yoga, and I kept on telling myself, God, give me a chance. I would love to do that. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't get the chance because it requires a lot of effort to, help these people because they need support. And one fine day, to cut the story short, because of certain misunderstanding, a gentleman called Mr. Dipendra Manocha came to my center, and the misunderstanding was blessing in disguise. My private secretary tells me that here is an email which says he can't see. So I said, no, don't, because it's a normal class and I have no assistance. How will I help? Okay, then form goes away. Then the second day I have a personal counseling session and I say, hey, he's the same man. He says, yes ma'am, I have spoken to him, now he can see. I would have not believed her if I would have not gone through that. Last 2 years have been quite critical for my eyes, and I used to become blind in between. So I thought maybe he is having the similar kind of a problem, that you become blind and then you get your eyes. Trust me, I have gone through that last 2 years. So I said, okay, who knows? Allow him. And here comes Mr. Manocha, who couldn't see, not even a word. And when I looked at him and I said, but I have been told that, okay, let it be. I said, Mr. Manocha, thank you very much for choosing our center, because I thought personally that spur of the moment, though I was very angry with my private secretary, thank you to her, that if God is sending this person to me, that means He will also send some supportive people, or some sense will prevail to me to help him. And thank you very much, Mr. Manocha, for trusting me and allowing me to work on you. I had to work a little extra, an hour and a half extra, because I used to first teach him separately and then I will ask him to join the class. And I don't know, this is the credit has to be shared equally. It is Guruji's grace and his evolved science which he continuously go on evolving. Where we started his postures first completely with full support, back to back. He is standing against the wall and he is doing the posture, same posture. I have just taken one example so that it's a continuation. Then when he got some understanding of the asana, I made him to do next with partial support, where his one leg was completely supported and one hand was completely supported. But the beauty was, he says that ma'am, it is not difficult because your instructions are too clear and too sharp. But the beauty was his focusing ability. So I was focusing to make sure that, yogic science should do wonders on him, and he was focusing on his abilities, which created this beautiful moment in my yogic journey. And then then I took him for the next level, next slide, in which he is completely independent. And trust me, this happens in only 8 classes. On the 8th class, Mr. Manocha was able to do everything independently. He is extremely focused student, and this is what he does. But now see the next thing, which is next slide, which is again a very interesting slide. Next. Now if you can see this particular slide, in this can we continue with this? Let's continue with this. In this slide, if you see, again, one of my teacher Neeru is practicing independent Shirshasana, and there is a gentleman who is doing Shirshasana with the support of 2 chairs. Now when he is doing with the support of 2 chairs, to hear the beauty of this particular incident, Guruji used to teach in NDA, Pune. And one day he was giving this kind of a seminar where one person after the seminar, when he says, any question? He said, yes sir, I have one question. He says, what? I want to do Shirshasana. He said, of course, come here. So he came to Guruji and he just shrugged his shoulders off and there were no hands. So Guruji created this particular technique to do Shirshasana without the person who has no hands. So this was not only for the person who doesn't have hand and can practice Shirshasana, but for the person who has no confidence left or has a neck problem or cannot hold the pose because of XYZ reason. Now because I'm a scientist and also I have done this and also I've got the benefit of it, the science behind it is that when you see this kind of a posture, the first thing the doctor says, no Shirshasana for the people who have neck problem. For your information, out of 7 discs in my neck, I have only 1 disc left in the position. 6 are out of the place. And I can do that. The point is, without doing it, without knowing how to do it and when to do it, these comments should not be made. Well, to start with, as we started with Mr. Manocha, to take out the fear complex of the person and also to build up the strength so that you can hold the pose, we have many improvisation. One of them is with 2 chairs. The other will be again, next. So don't think that this is only for senior citizen. When you have no strength, but you want to do Shirshasana, because Shirshasana is the father of the asanas, it works directly on the master glands, pituitary, pineal. It can bring the changes in your mind which no other asana can do it. The replenishment of the brain and the refreshment of with the new oxygenated blood is marvelous in this. When you do 5 minutes of Shirshasana, you get out of it, you feel that you are absolutely fresh for the next particular day. This is the effect of that. Now you can do with the ropes. So this is what I was realizing when I was practicing with Mr. Iyengar and studying, that it's not that you do one structure and it is asana. One has to understand, and it is a very good occasion for me to explain this, that posture cannot be considered as asana. Asana has certain characteristics which sprouts on your body and mind. Those characteristics, when established in the posture, becomes asana. This has to be very clearly understood by the scientists and the people who are heading towards the new millennium, to understand that this spiritual science is such a deep and evolved science. The time has come that we should understand, and not only understand and study. The modern science and this ancient science should come together, and this is the need of the hour. Without that, the modern science is going to be incomplete. Now, when you see these kind of postures and you see people working on this and getting the health, the rest of the world thinks, oh, you did exercise. No, you didn't. Asanas are not exercise. Asanas are done by the mind, of the mind, for the mind. Of course, body is used as an instrument, but that is not the main instrument. There is a sutra which says Sthira Sukham Asanam, and it is most misinterpreted sutra, where everyone thinks that any posture which gives you sthirta and sukha is Sthira Sukham Asana. No. The reality is, when you establish the characteristic of the asana in the posture, it is something like iconizing an idol. आप प्राण प्रतिष्ठा करते हैं उसकी. तो जब आप पोस्चर में आसन की प्राण प्रतिष्ठा करते हैं तो प्राण का आह्वान होता है। इसलिए जब भी कोई मुझसे इस लहजे में बात करता है, पहले तो मुझे बहुत गुस्सा आ जाता था, अब मैं हंस देती हूँ कि कुछ आप मुझे यौगिक एक्सरसाइज लिख के दे देंगी। ये ऐसे लिख के पर्चे की तरह नहीं दिया जा सकता, इसको आपको अभ्यास करना पड़ता है। मगर आसनों की जो हायरार्की है वो काफी ऊंची है, जो समझने वाली बात है। उससे भी बड़ी बात, ऐसा क्या होता है कि जब हम एक क्लास करते हैं और मेरे स्टूडेंट्स का अक्सर कमेंट होता है कि मैम मजा आ गया क्लास करके, आए तो बड़े स्टिफ थे, बड़े खुल गए, और फिर आते हैं। तो उनकी वो अभी अवस्था है जो मेरी आज से 18 साल पहले थी कि क्लास जाएंगे बदन खुल जाएगा और फ्रेश फील करेंगे। They are not realizing the fact, or maybe they will understand later, that it is not just freshness of the body and the freshness of the mind. It is the game of consciousness. One has to understand that the human beings are not only to be present on the planet Earth to just enjoy and earn and then die. There is a difference, there is an evolution. After that, the Homo sapiens comes into existence. This evolution is not only based on spine and spine and spine. Your spine was like this, and then it became little better, and then from orangutan to Homo sapiens. This is not the evolution. The beauty of the human being is the consciousness and the ability to reach to the higher consciousness. Asana, pranayam take you to that level, and the methodology which Iyengar has left for us to practice and again, as I said, refine and redefine is marvelous. If I have to, elaborate this more and tell you certain, books and researches which is happening now, it is very interesting that now the modern science is also saying some similar kind of things. There are two authors, Andrew Newberg and Eugene D'Aquili, and they have written a book called Why God Won't Go Away. In that they have experimented, and now these are modern people, they are not ancient. Interesting part for me is to tell you and to explain you and to make a focus point is that the things which they are talking now, our ancient sages has already felt and done the dawn of our civilization. So they say that in experiments they found that intensely focused spiritual contemplation triggers an alteration in activity of the brain, which leads us to precise transcendental regions experiences as solid and tangible real. Now they are saying it now. We had already experienced through our work of sages and Mahamunis and Rishis. The time has come that we should definitely, have amalgamation of modern science and the ancient science. It's very, very important. As I personally feel, and my father has said in many lectures which I admire to the T, is that वो हमेशा कहते हैं कि बहुत जल्दी हम लोग जो हैं एक नंबर पे ही जाने जाएंगे, आधार कार्ड का नंबर, पैन कार्ड का नंबर, तो इंसान सिमट के नंबरों पर रह जाएगा। मुझे नहीं लगता कि ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी जिस एडवांसमेंट की हम बात कर रहे हैं वो इंसान को समझने की भी सलाहियत रखता है। अगर आज भारतवर्ष को किसी चीज़ की ज़रूरत है तो सिर्फ और सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी की नहीं, अच्छे पनडुब्बियों और जहाज़ों की नहीं। मुझे ये विश्वास है और इतिहास गवाह है कि अगर भारतवर्ष को अपना नाम विश्व में रोशन करना है तो अपनी स्पिरिचुअल साइंस के ज़रिए ही वो ये काम कर सकता है। इसलिए बहुत ज़रूरी है कि जो देश विवेकानंद, औरबिंदो, महात्मा गांधी ऐसे सपूत पैदा कर सकता है तो यहाँ तो बहुत कैपेसिटी है। अगर हमें विश्व में आज मोदी जी ने ये एक अद्भुत कार्य करके दिया है कि वर्ल्ड योगा डे हम अब मनाएंगे और उसको वो रिकग्निशन दी है, तो ये हमारा भी फर्ज है कि हम इन बातों को बहुत ध्यान से सोचें और इन पर काम करें कि क्या भारत सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी के क्षेत्र के लिए ही है या हम स्पिरिचुअल साइंस, हायर कॉन्शियसनेस, कॉस्मिक कॉन्शियसनेस, इनके बारे में बात करके उनसे ऊपर उठ सकते हैं। सत्य यह है कि हमारा ही एक ऐसा देश है पूरे विश्व में जो स्पिरिचुअल साइंस की बात करता आ रहा है बहुत ही पुराने समय से, प्राचीन समय से। इसके अलावा एक बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग बात मुझे मेरे जहन में बार बार आती है कि हम बात करते हैं एक ऐसे समाज की, ऐसे राष्ट्र की जो बहुत ऊंचाइयों तक जाए और बहुत ही अच्छे कामों से जाना जाए, और ये भूल जाते हैं कि ये बहुत आसान हो सकता है अगर हम अपनी धरोहर का सम्मान करें और उसका अध्ययन करें। महात्मा गांधी ने सिर्फ दो अस्त्र लिए, सत्य और अहिंसा। जो योग के यम नियम आसन, जो यम नियम वाले सोपान है, उसमें यम के दो छोटे से रूप हैं, सत्य और अहिंसा। उससे न केवल उन्होंने भारतवर्ष को स्वाधीनता दिलाई, बल्कि जाने कितने मुल्कों को आह्वान किया कि आप भी आजाद हो सकते हैं। तो अगर केवल योग के दो अस्त्रों से, सत्य और अहिंसा से, न केवल मुल्क की बल्कि तमाम दुनिया की आजादी की बात की जा सकती है और एक नई क्रांति की जा सकती है, तो आप अंदाजा लगाएं कि अगर इसके यम नियम आसन प्राणायाम प्रत्याहार धारण ध्यान समाधि, इन सभी सोपानों को हम ध्यान पूर्वक और नियम से इन पर कार्य करें, तो ये जो आज़ादी हमारे लिए लाएगा, ये जो हमारा नाम रोशन करेगा, न केवल अपनी ही समाज में बल्कि पूरे विश्व में, वो एक अद्भुत सी अवस्था होगी। और ऐसा बिल्कुल हो सकता है, मुझे ऐसी पूरी उम्मीद है। जब जब मैं गुरु जी के कामों को देखती हूँ, पढ़ती हूँ और उस पर काम करती हूँ, तो मुझे हमेशा ऐसा लगता है कि जिन भी महामुनियों ने इस कार्य को यहाँ तक पहुँचाया, जिसमें आज की तारीख में श्री अयंगर अग्रणी हैं, उनके अभ्यासों से अगर हम सीख लेके काम कर सकें तो ये उनके लिए सच्ची श्रद्धांजलि होगी। हमारे पास सारी धरोहर है, ये विज्ञान है, इसके कोर्सेज हैं, इसको ट्रेन करने के तरीके हैं। बात यह है कि आपके अंदर चाहिए कि हमें इसको करके देखना है और पाना है कि इसमें क्या छुपा हुआ रहस्य है। अगर हम ऐसा कर सकेंगे तो मेरे ख्याल से ये हमारे मुल्क के लिए नहीं, हमारे लिए भी बहुत अच्छा होगा, क्योंकि शरीर तो सबसे बड़ा क्षेत्र है। अगर हमने इस पे विजय प्राप्त कर ली तो मन तो विजय प्राप्त कर ही लेगा। इन शब्दों के साथ मैं 4 लाइन कह के इस लेक्चर को यहाँ समाप्त करूंगी। अभिनव ने जिस 4 लाइनों से इस कार्यक्रम की शुरुआत की, जो उसने मेरे लिए कहे, वो मेरी बड़ी पसंदीदा कविता है। उसी कविता का ये आखिरी हिस्सा है और ये मैं ख़ास तौर पे कह रही हूँ मिस्टर दीपेंद्र मनोचा के लिए, क्योंकि मैंने ऐसी ही बहुत ही कठिन परिस्थितियों से गुजर के एक नई जगह अपने लिए बनाई, और मेरे ख्याल से ऐसे हर आदमी कर सकता है अगर ज़रा सी उसे सहारा मिल जाए। उसी कविता की आखिर की 4 पंक्तियां कुछ इस तरह से हैं। असफलता एक चुनौती है, स्वीकार करो। असफलता एक चुनौती है, स्वीकार करो। क्या कमी रह गई देखो और सुधार करो। जब तक न सफल हो नींद चैन की त्यागो तुम। जब तक न सफल हो नींद चैन की त्यागो तुम। संघर्षों का मैदान छोड़ मत भागो तुम। कुछ किए बिना ही जय जयकार नहीं होती। हिम्मत करने वालों की हार नहीं होती।